Let me thank everybody on the stage up here, but more importantly, to say thank you, Iowa. It's twice in a row. We stood a barrage of millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of negative advertising and came out on top.
Iowa has been the first state in the nation to hold its presidential contest since 1972. It came in the wake of the riots at the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Party leadership wanted to give voters a more direct say in selecting the nominee. CBS News political unit associate producer Sarah Ewall-Wice takes a look back at how the caucuses helped shape history.
In Iowa tonight, the American people began voicing their opinions about Campaign 76.
Iowa has been first for nearly 50 years, but it was the 1976 caucuses where the rest of the country started paying attention.
Well, I feel very pleased and proud of the showing we had in Iowa. I thought we'd come in first or second. I was hoping to come in first, but to come in 2-1 ahead of the next candidate was a very gratifying thing.
That year, a little-known governor from Georgia won the most support of any candidate.
I'm Jimmy Carter. Good to see you again.
He would go on to become the 39th president of the United States.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Since 1972, all but 3 of the Democratic presidential nominees have come out on top in Iowa. Only Bill Clinton didn't place in the top 3.
This front section here will be Harkin supporters. Do we have Clinton supporters here?
That was back in 1992. That year, Iowa Senator Tom Harkin won his home state.
Now let's go out and win the big one.
Clinton came in 4th, but he made up for it soon after with a 2nd-place finish in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire tonight has made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
Since then, every Democratic presidential nominee has come out on top in Iowa.
Thank you for the biggest victory in the history of the contested caucuses here in Iowa.
4 years later, Massachusetts Senator John Kerry managed to pull off a victory after trailing in the polls.
CBS News estimates John Kerry has won the Iowa Democratic caucuses, followed by John Edwards in 2nd place. Dean and Gephardt followed in order.
You know, we worked hard. It was a great team effort. It was, and Iowans, my tribute is to Iowans, not us.
But it was Howard Dean's caucus night speech that went down as one for the ages.
We're going to California and Texas and New York, and we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan, and then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
Dean placed 3rd, and his campaign never fully recovered.
This is our first caucus. We're going to campaign here hard. We want to win in Iowa.
That was then Senator Barack Obama before his win against John Edwards and Hillary Clinton.
Together, ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
The 2008 Iowa caucuses still hold the record for voter turnout. More than 230,000 people showed up to caucus.
The younger person not ready being out of the D.C. crowd, maybe that would help him to make some good decisions.
Change has come to America.
Obama's message of hope and change would help propel him all the way from Iowa to the White House.
Anybody caucusing for Hillary? Yes. Awesome.
Hillary Clinton was back in 2016 to celebrate a 1st-place finish, but barely.
I stand here tonight breathing a big sigh of relief. Thank you, Iowa.
Senator Sanders, are you conceding the race in Iowa?
Last that I saw is we were 4 delegates down.
Clinton won Iowa by less than 1%, signaling a long primary season ahead. Iowa holding its contest first has stirred some controversy this year. That's because the state is 90% white. Some have argued it doesn't reflect the diversity of the country or the Democratic Party. At the same time, while Iowa does boost momentum for whoever comes out on top, it is not always a strong indicator of who would end up going to the White House. Since 1972, only 3 candidates have gone from Iowa to the White House. They were Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, and George W. Bush.
Sarah Ewall-Wice, thank you very much. For more, let's bring back in Lynda Tran, Leslie Sanchez, and Antjuan Seawright. Lynda is a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. Leslie is a CBS News political contributor and Republican strategist. And Antjuan is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. All right, let's start with a question for all of you. Antjuan, I'm going to ask you first, what is your favorite caucus moment in history?
My favorite caucus moment in history. Perspective, I'm 34.
For the record, let the record show.
Was 2016. as I understand it, Hillary Clinton was the first woman to win the Iowa caucuses, at least on our side of the aisle. That was a transformational moment for me. One, because I worked for her, but two, she went on to become the first woman to represent a major party as the presidential nominee. And so Iowa was a kickstart to history in 2016, so that was a very special moment.
Leslie, what about you?
You know, I go back to Ted Cruz. He was somebody who won, it was 2016, he won, and very much was part of the mobilizing the social conservative evangelical movement. It was something that was compounded since 2012 with the Brick Sanctorum. It just proved that the state was certainly based on social conservative values, but also to have a minority like Ted Cruz was really a profound moment as well. He didn't go on to continue much longer past Iowa, but it was a moment compelling the urgency and the importance of this part of the Republican constituency.
And I think we actually have that. If we want to show our viewers that, just to kind of remind people, it was a much different atmosphere at that moment in 2016, right? Let's go ahead and play that first.
To the revolutionary understanding that all men and all women are created equal. That our rights do not come from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or even from the Tea Party. Our rights come from our Creator.
So, Leslie, that's your favorite
Our rights come from our Creator. I know he's very much talking about, you know, the soul of this country and the right values, the direction that was important to evangelicals everywhere. And it was a moment that activated and galvanized a movement. And it was surprising because a lot of that support did go to Donald Trump. And people didn't expect that to happen, but it happened because of Senator Ted Cruz.
Lynda, what about you? Favorite caucus moment in history?
Well, Antjuan started by telling you how young he is. I'm going to make you all realize how old I am. But take you back to before Twitter, before Facebook, before
way
YouTube.
back.
Yes, the year was 2004. And it was the year that Howard Dean forever cemented himself in history with his scream. So for viewers back home who may or may not recall, depending on their age bracket, Howard Dean was full-on momentum behind him. He pioneered all of this kind of online engagement, the neighborhoods organizing, the living room organizing teams. And he went into Iowa after having made a number of flubs, but when he came in third, it was a huge detracting moment for him, and it really took the wind out of his sails, and he was trying to rally the troops, and while he was on stage, he let out a roar that will forever be heard in the annals of history.
Yeah.
But we can't forget the transformational moment, the night Barack Obama claimed victory in 2008. I think that has transformed the Democratic Party that night because no one expected it. No one could actually speak to how it happened. It was one of those things where it was just a game of inches, and he came out on top for running the right plays. And for me, as an African-American male, while I love Hillary Clinton and her moment was transformational, that was a heart moment for me to see the first African-American went on to be the first African-American to be the president of the United States. I think that started in Iowa.
So let's fast forward to tonight. How significant, Antjuan, will a victory for the eventual winner be here tonight?
I've been saying this from the very beginning of this process. I don't know if it will determine anything about what happens later. A marathon is not won in the first lap. I think tonight is the first lap. And I've always been crystal clear about the importance of South Carolina in this process because it is the first time we will see a true reflection of our Democratic Party. 61% African-American, 55% women. Look ahead to Super Tuesday. Most of the states follow have similar voting demographics for likely voters. So I think Iowa will be a media narrative, but I think the real race will start in South Carolina.
Lynda, let's go back to 1992 for a moment. Bill Clinton did not win in Iowa, but of course came in second in New Hampshire later. So give us some context here and perspective. Why is not losing in Iowa not necessarily, I mean, you know, why is losing in Iowa not necessarily a bad thing for a candidate?
Well, let's parse out what you're actually trying to accomplish in Iowa. First, there's this saying, right, there are 3 tickets out of Iowa. This is traditionally where you're seeing a winnowing of the field. This field this year is much larger than we've seen previously. But the whole point of Iowa is to show that you have, first of all, a strong organization, because it's your first test of organizing. The way, as we've been talking about, these caucuses work, if you don't have those people who've built those relationships and are going to move people, then you're not going to do well. doesn't really matter who you are, as we saw Ted Cruz, who had the organization, win out over Donald Trump in 2016. That said, if you're not first, it doesn't mean you won't be the nominee, as we saw with Bill Clinton, who I think may have come in third that cycle, because it's just that first moment. And if you have had enough success up until this moment to raise the dollars to keep you going through the early states, to raise the dollars to keep you going through Super Tuesday, it's not the whole ball game. It's just the beginning of the story.
All right, Lynda Tran, Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright, thank you all very much. We are going to take a quick break, but we're going to be here all night. More on the Iowa caucuses when we come back. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.